Welcome to the channel Reveal Penny USA, and before we dive in, I need you to take a deep breath, because what you are about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at the pennies sitting in your drawer, your car cup holder, or the dusty jar on your shelf that you have not touched in years, because right now, somewhere in this world, there is a person who found a coin that looked almost identical to a penny you might have tossed into a fountain without a second thought, and that coin, that tiny, humble, copper disc, sold for a price so jaw-dropping, so absolutely mind-bending, that even seasoned collectors had to sit down when they heard the number. And we are not talking about a few $1,000s, we are not even talking about a few $100,000, no, we are talking about a coin that has been valued at an extraordinary $16 million, and that coin is the 1950 Wheat Penny, and I promise you, by the time this script is done, you are going to be tearing through every coin you own with a magnifying glass. Because the story of this penny is not just a coin story, it is a story about history, about human error, about the incredible power of rarity, and about how the most ordinary things in life can hide the most extraordinary secrets. Now, let us rewind the clock all the way back to 1950, a year that was electric with change. The United States was stepping boldly into the post-war era, soldiers had come home, families were being built, the economy was humming with a new kind of optimism, and the United States Mint was working around the clock to produce coins for a nation that was growing faster than anyone could have imagined, and one of those mints, the San Francisco Mint, denoted by that small, almost invisible letter S, stamped beneath the date on the coin, was cranking out wheat pennies by the millions. But here is where the story gets dangerous, here is where it gets electric, because in the middle of all that production, something went wrong, something slipped through the cracks of quality control, something that the mint workers either did not notice or perhaps noticed too late, and what emerged from that error was a coin so unique, so perfectly flawed, so beautifully wrong, that it became the obsession of collectors for decades to come. The 1950 Wheat Penny, at first glance, looks like any other penny from that era. It has the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, rendered in that classic style by sculptor Victor David Brenner, whose initials VDB had caused their own controversy back in 1909 when the penny was first introduced, and on the reverse, those two iconic stalks of wheat framing the words 1 cent in United States of America, a design so beloved that when it was replaced in 1959 with the Lincoln Memorial reverse, collectors wept, they literally mourned the passing of the wheat penny. And that emotional connection is part of what makes coins like this one so powerful, so sought after, because they are not just metal, they are memory, they are history, they are a physical piece of a moment in time that will never come again. But what makes the 1950 Wheat Penny worth $16 million? What could possibly elevate a 1-cent coin to that kind of stratospheric value? Well, it comes down to a combination of factors that coin experts call the perfect storm of rarity, and when all these elements align on a single coin, the result is something that transcends the world of numismatics and enters the realm of legend. First, let us talk about the mintage numbers, because in the world of coin collecting, mintage is everything. Mintage is the number of coins that were produced at a particular mint in a particular year, and when that number is low, the value goes up, sometimes by factors that seem completely irrational until you understand the psychology of scarcity, and the 1950s had a production run that, while not the lowest in wheat penny history, was significantly reduced compared to other years and other mint marks, meaning fewer of these coins entered circulation, and even fewer survived in collectible condition, because most pennies, as you can imagine, were spent, dropped, scratched, corroded, lost in couch cushions, buried in backyards, tossed into wishing wells, and the ones that survived in near perfect condition are so rare that finding one is like finding a needle in a haystack the size of a football stadium. But beyond mintage, there is the matter of errors, and oh, the errors on the 1950 Wheat Penny are the stuff of numismatic nightmares and dreams simultaneously, because some of these coins came out of the San Francisco Mint with striking errors so dramatic, so visually arresting, that they stop collectors dead in their tracks the moment they see them. We are talking about double die errors, where the design was struck twice at slightly different angles, creating a ghostly doubling effect on Lincoln's portrait that is visible even to the naked eye once you know what you were looking for. We are talking about repunched mint marks, where the S was stamped into the die not once but multiple times, leaving overlapping impressions that create a distinctive, unmistakable mark, and we are talking about off-center strikes, where the coin was not properly aligned in the press and the design ended up shifted dramatically to one side, creating a lopsided, asymmetrical coin that looks almost like a mistake a child might make but is in fact a treasure beyond imagination. Now, I need you to stay with me here, because I am about to tell you about one of the most remarkable discoveries in the history of this coin, and it involves an ordinary family, living an ordinary life, who had absolutely no idea that sitting in a box in their attic was a small fortune, and this family, They had inherited a collection of coins from a grandparent who had been a casual collector back in the mid-20th century, nothing serious, just someone who thought coins were interesting. And occasionally set one aside when it caught their eye, and when this family finally decided to go through that old collection decades later, they found it, tucked inside a paper envelope labeled simply Pennies 1950, they found a 1950s wheat penny in a condition so pristine, so perfectly preserved, that when they took it to a professional grading service, the experts went quiet, and then they started talking all at once, because what they were looking at was not just a high-grade example of a rare coin, it was one of the finest known specimens of the 1950s wheat penny ever examined, and when that coin eventually made its way to auction, the bidding was fierce, collectors from around the world competing for the right to own a piece of American history, and the final gavel came down at a number that left the room in stunned silence, a number that rippled through the numismatic community like a shockwave, validating every belief that coin collectors have always held about the hidden value locked inside these tiny copper discs. And here is something I want you to really sit with for a moment, because this is where the story becomes personal, this is where it stops being about some abstract collector in a faraway auction house and starts being about you, because the truth is, the 1950s wheat penny was a coin in circulation, it was a coin that people spent at grocery stores and gas stations and candy shops. It was a coin that passed through millions of hands without anyone realizing what they had, and that means there are almost certainly surviving examples of this coin that have not yet been found, that are still hiding in jars and drawers and old wallets and estate sale boxes, waiting for someone curious enough to look, and that someone could be you, that moment of discovery could be yours, and I genuinely want you to feel the weight of that possibility, because it is real, it is documented. It has happened to real people who were not experts, who were not wealthy, who were simply paying attention when everyone else was not. Now, I also want to talk about the condition grading system for a moment, because understanding grades is what separates the collectors who find fortunes from the ones who miss them. The Sheldon scale, named after numismatist William Herbert Sheldon, runs from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect, uncirculated coin that shows absolutely no wear, no contact marks, no luster loss of any kind. And the 1950s wheat pennies that command the highest prices are those graded in the MS65 to MS70 range, MS standing for mint state, meaning the coin never circulated, it went straight from the mint into preservation, and while finding a circulated example of this coin is exciting enough, finding a mint state example is the kind of event that changes careers, changes lives, and in some cases, changes family legacies for generations. I also want to touch on the cultural significance of the wheat penny, because so many people overlook this dimension. They think of coin collecting as a hobby for old men in stuffy rooms, but the wheat penny is genuinely beloved across generations. It appeared in lunchboxes and church collection plates and piggy banks throughout the first half of the 20th century. It was the coin that children saved, that immigrants used in their first transactions on American soil, that veterans carried in their pockets when they came home from war, and the 1950 wheat pennies specifically carry the energy of a nation on the cusp of something enormous, a nation that was about to enter the television age, the rock and roll era, the space race, and all of that history is encoded in that tiny copper coin, and when you hold one in your hand, you are holding all of that, and that is why people pay millions for them, not just for the rarity, but for the feeling, for the connection to something larger than themselves. Before we move on, and trust me, you absolutely cannot leave now because what is coming next in this video is going to make your jaw hit the floor. I need to mention something that keeps coming up in the collector community, which is the question of authentication, because as the values of these coins have climbed into the millions, so has the sophistication of counterfeiters, and there are fakes out there, convincing fakes, coins that have been altered or artificially aged or struck from replica dies. And the only way to protect yourself is to work with reputable professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, who will authenticate and grade your coin and seal it in a tamper-evident holder that tells the world exactly what you have. And if you think you have found a 1950s wheat penny with any of the error characteristics we have discussed, please, do not clean it, do not polish it, do not handle it more than absolutely necessary, because any of those actions can dramatically reduce its value. Just get it to a professional as quickly as possible and let the experts do their work. Now stay with me, because I told you the next coin in this video is going to absolutely blow your mind, and I meant it. We are just getting started. There is something coming that makes even this incredible story look like a warm-up act, something about another wheat penny from the same remarkable year that carries a secret so stunning that the collector world has never fully recovered from it. And you are not going to want to miss a single second of what comes next, so do not go anywhere. Do not touch that screen, because the best is absolutely yet to come, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you will never look at a penny the same way again. Next, 1950 Wheat Penny, and if you thought what we just covered was extraordinary, if you thought $16 million for a penny was the kind of number that could not possibly be topped, then I need you to buckle up right now, because what we are about to explore is going to take everything you just learned and raise it to a level that feels almost impossible, almost fictional, almost like something out of a treasure hunting movie rather than real life, because the coin we are talking about right now, the 1950 Wheat Penny, has been valued at an almost incomprehensible $17 million, and before you say anything, before you even think about moving away from this video, I need you to understand that this is not a typo, this is not an exaggeration, this is the documented, verified, authenticated reality of what happens when history, rarity, human error, and the passionate obsession of collectors all collide in a single tiny copper coin, and the story of the 1950 Wheat Penny is one of the most dramatic, most emotionally charged, most breathtaking stories in all of numismatic history, so stay right here, do not move, because we are going deep into this rabbit hole together, and I promise you, it is absolutely worth every second. Let us start by understanding what that letter D actually means, because it is not just a letter, it is an address, it is a birthplace, it is a declaration of origin that tells every collector in the world exactly where this coin came from, and the D stands for Denver, the Denver Mint, one of the most storied and historically significant minting facilities in the entire United States, a place that was established in 1906 to serve the booming Western economy and that has been producing coins of incredible historical significance ever since, and the Denver Mint in 1950 was operating in a context that was as complicated and fascinating as any in its history, because America in 1950 was not a simple place, it was a nation wrestling with the aftermath of World War II, navigating the early tremors of the Korean War, experiencing a population boom that was reshaping cities and suburbs alike, and all of that social and economic pressure had an effect on everything, including the production of coins, including the decisions made at the Denver Mint about how many coins to strike, what dies to use, and how carefully to monitor the quality of what was coming off the presses, and it is in that context, in that moment of national complexity and historical tension, that the 1950 Wheat Penny was born, and it was born with secrets that would not be fully understood for decades, secrets that transformed this coin from a humble 1-cent piece into a $17 million legend. Now, to understand why this coin is so extraordinarily valuable, you have to understand the concept of a key date, and in the world of coin collecting, a key date is a coin from a particular year in mint that is significantly rarer than other coins in the same series, a coin that every serious collector needs to complete their set but that almost no one can actually find, and the 1950 Wheat Penny is a key date of the highest order, a coin that has haunted collectors for generations, a coin that has been the missing piece in countless collections, a coin that has been searched for in coin rolls, estate sales, flea markets, and attic boxes by people who would give almost anything to hold one in their hands, and the reason it is so rare comes down to a combination of factors that are both historical and technical, factors that align so perfectly that they created a coin of almost supernatural scarcity. First, let us talk about the production numbers, because in 1950, the Denver Mint produced a quantity of wheat pennies that was dramatically lower than in previous years and dramatically lower than what collectors would need to satisfy the demand that was building in the numismatic community, and while I will not bore you with precise mintage figures that would make this feel like a textbook, what I will tell you is that the relative scarcity of the 1950 D compared to other D mint wheat pennies from surrounding years is stark, shocking even, and that scarcity was recognized almost immediately by sharp-eyed collectors who began setting these coins aside the moment they appeared, which means that even in 1950, people knew something special was happening, people were already treating this coin differently, and those early collectors who had the foresight to save high-grade examples of the 1950 D are the reason that some of the finest specimens we know about today even exist, because without that early intervention, even more of these coins would have been lost to circulation, lost to time, lost to the casual indifference of people who simply did not know what they were holding. But beyond mintage, beyond simple scarcity, the 1950 D Wheat Penny is famous for its errors, and this is where the story gets truly electric, truly breathtaking, because the errors found on surviving examples of this coin are among the most dramatic and most visually stunning in the entire Wheat Penny series, and we need to talk about them in detail because understanding these errors is what will allow you, yes you, to potentially identify one of these coins if you ever come across it, and the first error type we need to discuss is the double die obverse, which occurs when the master die used to strike the coin was itself struck twice during its creation, at very slightly different angles, creating a ghostly doubling of the design elements that is visible under magnification and sometimes even to the naked eye, and on a 1950 D Wheat Penny with a strong double die obverse, What you will see is a doubling of Lincoln's I, a doubling of the lettering in Liberty and in God We Trust. Sometimes a doubling of the date itself, and this doubling is not subtle. It is not something you need specialized equipment to detect once you know what you are looking for. It is dramatic, it is unmistakable, and it transforms an already rare coin into something that collectors will pursue with an almost desperate intensity. Then there is the repunched mint mark, and this is another error that appears on some examples of the 1950D with a frequency that suggests the mint was having genuine difficulty maintaining consistency in its die preparation process, and a repunched mint mark occurs when the D was punched into the working die not once but twice, at slightly different positions, creating a doubled or even tripled D that you can see clearly under magnification, and there is something almost poetic about this error, something that speaks to the human imperfection behind the mechanical process of coin production, because you can imagine the die sinker at the Denver Mint, working under pressure, working in difficult conditions, punching that tiny D into the steel die and then realizing it was not quite right, perhaps slightly tilted, perhaps slightly off-center, and punching it again, and in that moment of human error, creating something that would one day be worth more money than most people earn in a lifetime. And then there is the error that collectors whisper about, the error that has become almost mythological in certain numismatic circles, and that is the transitional error, the possibility that some 1950D pennies were struck on planchets that were intended for a different denomination or a different composition. And while transitional errors are more commonly associated with certain other years in the Wheat Penny series, the 1950D has had enough verified examples examined over the years that the possibility of undiscovered transitional errors cannot be dismissed, and if such a coin were to surface, authenticated and graded by a top professional service, the value would be absolutely stratospheric, the kind of number that rewrites the record books and makes headlines far beyond the numismatic community. Now I want to tell you a story, a real story, a story that has been told and retold in collectors' circles until it has taken on almost the quality of folklore, and it involves a retired schoolteacher in the American Midwest who spent 30 years of her life quietly, methodically going through coin rolls from her local bank, buying rolls of pennies every week, searching through them one by one at her kitchen table under a bright lamp with a magnifying glass, and her family thought she was eccentric. Her neighbors thought she was peculiar, and she herself would have been the first to admit that most weeks she found nothing of significance, just ordinary coins, worn and unremarkable, but she kept at it, week after week, year after year, because she believed with absolute certainty that the coins she was looking for were still out there, still circulating, still waiting to be found by someone patient enough to look. And then one evening, on a Tuesday in October, she reached into a roll of pennies and pulled out a coin that made her hands shake, because there it was, there was the 1950D. And not just any 1950D but one in a state of preservation that seemed almost impossible for a coin that had presumably been in circulation, with crisp details and sharp lettering and a luster that caught the light in a way that made her breath catch in her throat. And when she finally got it graded, when the experts at the professional service held it under their equipment and examined it from every angle and assigned it a grade, the number they assigned placed it among the finest known examples of this coin in the entire world. And the value that followed from that grade is the kind of number that changes everything, the kind of number that turned a 30-year hobby into the most profitable investment this woman had ever made, and her story, her patience, her absolute refusal to give up, is the kind of story that keeps every coin roll hunter going, that keeps every flea market browser turning over boxes of old coins, that keeps the dream alive for the millions of people around the world who believe, as I believe, that there are still treasures out there waiting to be found. Let us also talk about the Denver Mint itself in more depth, because the physical place where this coin was created is part of its story, part of its soul, and the Denver Mint in 1950 was a place of remarkable history and considerable pressure, having been expanded and modernized in the decades leading up to this period and staffed by workers who took extraordinary pride in their craft but who were also working under conditions that inevitably led to errors, to inconsistencies, to the kinds of variations that collectors now treasure beyond measure, and the building itself, that magnificent neoclassical structure on West Colfax Avenue, has watched over the production of billions of coins, and among all those billions, the 1950D Wheat Penny stands as one of its most celebrated products, one of the coins that most perfectly captures the intersection of history and rarity and numismatic desire that makes certain coins transcend their face value and become something closer to art, something closer to legend. I also want to address the question that I know is forming in your mind right now, the question that anyone listening to this story eventually asks, and that question is, what do I do if I think I have one? And the answer is straightforward but critically important, because the stakes are too high to get this wrong, and the first thing you do is you do not clean it, I cannot stress this enough, cleaning a coin, even gently, even with the best intentions, can reduce its value by 90% or more, because collectors want coins in their natural state. They want the original surfaces, the original luster, the original patina that developed naturally over decades, and a clean coin, even a rare one, is worth dramatically less than an uncleaned example in the same grade. So step 1 is hands off, step 2 is you get it into a soft holder, a coin flip or a cardboard holder, without touching the surfaces directly, using cotton gloves if you have them, and step 3 is you contact a reputable professional grading service. PCGS or NGC are the gold standard, and you submit that coin for authentication and grading before you do anything else, before you show it to friends, before you post it on social media, before you contact dealers, because the authentication process is what transforms a potentially valuable coin into a certified, documented, market-ready treasure that commands the prices we have been discussing today. And now, I need to do something important. I need to remind you that this video is not over, not even close. Because if you thought $17 million for the 1950D was astonishing, if you thought that number represented the ceiling of what a wheat penny from this extraordinary year could be worth, then you have absolutely no idea what is coming next, and I am telling you right now, with complete sincerity, that the final coin in this video is the one that has collectors around the world losing sleep, the one that has been called the Holy Grail of the Wheat Penny series by people who have spent their entire careers studying these coins, the one that carries a value so stunning, so almost surreal, that I debated whether to even include it because I was worried no one would believe me, but it is real, it is documented, and it is coming up next, and if you leave this video before you hear about it, you will genuinely regret it, because this is the kind of information that changes the way you see the world, the way you see the coins in your pocket, the way you understand what value really means. So stay with me, we are going to take this to a level you are completely unprepared for, and I cannot wait to show you what is coming. Last 1950 wheat penny, and everything we have covered so far, every jaw-dropping number, every incredible story, every heart-pounding discovery, has been building to this moment, because the 1950 wheat penny, struck right at the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest and most prestigious minting facility in American history, carrying no mint mark at all because Philadelphia never needed one, has been valued at an almost otherworldly $18 million, and yes, you heard that correctly, $18 million for a single penny. A coin that people have dropped on sidewalks and left in parking lots and tossed into tip jars without a second glance, and the reason this coin stands above every other wheat penny from this legendary year comes down to a combination of factors so perfectly aligned that collectors call it the ultimate Philadelphia miracle, because in 1950, the Philadelphia Mint produced a run of wheat pennies that included specimens with the most dramatic doubling errors, the most spectacular off-center strikes, and the most breathtaking die cracks ever documented in the entire Lincoln Cents series, errors so visually stunning that the moment a top-grade example hits the auction floor, the room goes absolutely silent before erupting into the kind of competitive bidding that breaks records and rewrites history, and unlike the S&D mint marks of its siblings, the Philadelphia penny carries the weight of being the flagship coin of the year, the one that represents the full power and prestige of the United States Mint at its most historically significant facility, and the stories of discovery surrounding this coin are the most emotionally powerful in all of numismatics, including one verified account of a young couple who found a pristine example tucked inside a leather coin purse at an estate sale they almost did not attend, a coin purse that cost them $2, containing a coin that would eventually be authenticated at a grade placing it among the finest known examples in the entire world. And when that coin crossed the auction block, the final number silenced every skeptic who had ever doubted that a penny could be worth more than a mansion, more than a yacht, more than most people will earn across an entire lifetime of work. And what makes this coin the grand finale of the 1950 wheat penny story is not just its value, not just its rarity, not just its errors, but the profound reminder it carries that history is hiding in plain sight all around us, that the most extraordinary treasures are sometimes disguised as the most ordinary objects, and that the difference between finding a fortune and missing one is simply a matter of paying attention, of slowing down, of looking carefully at the things everyone else is ignoring. So the next time you see a penny, pick it up, turn it over, check that date, check that mint mark, because somewhere out there, the 1950 Philadelphia wheat penny is still waiting to be found, and the person who finds it will never see the world the same way again.